Good afternoon. Welcome to the Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals, August 8th, 2023 meeting. Ms. Knight, will you please call roll?
Mr. Corrigan?
Here.
Mr. Epps? Co-Chair Eslick?
Here.
Chairman Venable?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Terrific, thank you. So 3 is a quorum. We typically should have 5 people. Unfortunately, we have one that is just being accepted in, and unfortunately, Mr. Epps couldn't be here this evening. So if 3 is not acceptable, like I said, it is a quorum, but if that is not acceptable to you, feel free to stand and we can remove you from today's agenda and move you to next month's agenda. If 3 is acceptable, then we'll move forward with the agenda as it's written. Thank you very much. Our first, for the minutes, if you've had an opportunity to review the minutes, Mr. Carnegie, Mr. Eslick, would you accept or make a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Terrific, thank you. We'll move forward to BZA 19-2023. It's our first agenda item. Before Ms. Knight reads the caption, I would like to mention that my firm has worked on the adjacent property, the Publix development, to this particular property or agenda item. We have no involvement in the McDonald's development or development on this parcel itself. Mr. Carnegie, Mr. Eslick, if you see an issue with my involvement in voting on this, please say so. If not, we'll move forward with a quorum. Mr. Eslick, Mr. Carnegie?
Let's move forward.
Move forward.
Okay, terrific, thank you. BZA 19-2023. Ms. Knight, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 19-2023. The applicant's RS Suffolk LLC is requesting a variance to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces from 55 spaces to 41 to construct a new fast food establishment. The property is identified as tax map 25-30, addressed 3189 Godwin Boulevard, zoning classification, general commercial B2. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces from 55 to 41 to construct a new fast food establishment. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
Just wanted to make one quick correction. It's 3179 Godwin Boulevard, and that's what the staff report should show that you guys
Yes,
have.
thank you, Ms. Cobb.
I'm Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator, City of Suffolk. As previously stated, the applicant RS Suffolk LLC is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 6, Section 316067, Table 6062, off-street parking requirements to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 55 to 41 to construct a new fast food establishment. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 25-30, located at 3179 Godwin Boulevard, Suffolk, Virginia, Chuckatuck Voting Borough, zoning classification B2, general commercial. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was also posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces to construct a new fast food establishment. The UDO requires 1 parking space for every 75 square feet of gross floor area of the proposed dining establishment. The intended user will be a McDonald's with 2 drive-through lanes, each containing at least 6 spaces for cars to stack. The site will be adjacent to a proposed grocery store as well as retail users, which are currently going through a site plan review. The applicant stated our ordinance requires more parking than the model and layout that McDonald's currently constructs. The site is also located within the Special Corridor Overlay District, which limits the additional area for parking, as the front setback along the Scott Road is 30 feet for all drive aisles, building, and parking areas. The additional drive-through lanes will lessen the need for the parking on site, as the main source of traffic is pickup. Due to the additional setback requirement for all parking and drive aisles on the site, as well as the lower demand for parking due to drive-through users. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I'm available for any questions the board may have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Do we have any questions for her?
No.
We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Rich Harkins. I'm Director of Construction for Suffolk. I do have a revised, updated plan to share with you, if I may provide that to the board. It's just 2 minor changes that we made to improve the site. A little easier to read. So I appreciate the time today, and I appreciate the consideration from the board for our variance. Jennifer, as she presented, really lays out what we're looking for based on reducing the amount of parking that's available for this restaurant on site. As you probably know already, the Publix and the retail shops are well underway. We anticipate that will open before the end of the year. And this is just the next phase of our development. The McDonald's parcel, as you see there, is one of 2 lots that are out in front of the Publix and retail. And we're currently working on a deal with McDonald's to move forward. The prototype that's on plan that you now have in front of you is their standard prototypical McDonald's in today's environment. And that is a 4,058 square foot building. So by doing the math, if you use just 1 parking space per 75 square feet, that's how you come out to the 55 number for parking spaces per your current code. And we're requesting for that same square footage of building that be raised to 100 square feet, allowing us 41 parking spots on site. The changes that you'll see to the plan in front of you, we moved the dumpster enclosure from the main street to the back rear corner of the property. We thought that would be a better position, if you will, for the dumpster enclosure, so kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we've also adjusted the entrance coming into the McDonald's parcel from Planter Station Drive to a 60-foot buffer area to allow for trucks turning into the Publix and so on. So those 2 improvements, we think, makes for a better layout for the lot. You know, if you take a lot that is 1.12 acres, and Jennifer mentioned the landscape buffers and the building setbacks and those requirements that the city already has in place, that we're meeting those requirements, it really minimizes the amount of space that you have on site for parking. The additional car spaces in the double drive-through, which is one of the new prototypes for McDonald's, allows for an additional 12 to 15 cars. So, 41 plus 12, you're handling 53 to 55 cars on this site, so it certainly is adequate. So I think that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer those. You should see on the plan that I gave you, the spaces are noted in each of the quadrants where we have the parking, and that totals the 41 spots that we're asking for.
Thank you, sir. We will call you up if we have any questions at
Okay,
the end
great.
of the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition? Mr. Harkins, do you have anything to add at this time?
Thank you.
Okay, that closes our public hearing. Do we have any questions, comments?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Eslick for approval and a second from Mr. Carnegie. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Knight, will you please call for a vote?
Mr. Carnegie?
Yes.
Mr. Epps? Mr. Eslick?
Yes.
Ms. Venable?
Yes.
Vote passes.
Terrific. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're moving to our second item this afternoon, BZA 2023. Ms. Knight, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 2023, Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA application BZA 20-2023. The applicant, Nicholas Snipes, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet for construction of a new addition. The property is identified as tax map 19G*1 and addressed as 2030 Kings Highway. Zoning classification, residential low, medium density, RLM. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet for construction of a new addition. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
Great. As previously stated, the applicant, Nicholas Snipes, the property owner, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet in order to construct an addition. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 19G*1, located at 2030 Kings Highway, Suffolk, Virginia, Sleepy Hole Voting Borough, zoning classification RL, residential low density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. The applicant has requested a reduction in the side yard setback from the RL zoning district. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the residential low zoning district requires total land area of 30,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 80 feet and a minimum lot width of 100 feet when measured at the front setback line. This RL property was built in accordance with the River Cliff subdivision, Section 1, recorded November of 1967. The applicant has provided an exhibit that displays an addition within the 15-foot side yard setback. After further review of the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 31801E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3, allows the zoning administrator to grant up to a 30% reduction on front, side, and rear setbacks on any lot. Unfortunately, the location of the 2030 Kings Highway proposed addition slightly exceeds the 30% allowance of an administrative variance. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this request, and I'm available for any questions the board may have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Any questions for Ms. Cobb? No, ma'am. Thank you. We will now open this public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
I'm Brian Pritchard. I live at 4208 Kingsway Court in Suffolk, part of River Cliff, and I'm here to oppose this rezoning request. I've lived at River Cliff for 51 years. I bought the first lot there, and I don't think we need to be changing any of the regulations or deed restrictions on this property. 15 feet on the side lots is quite enough for anyone, and there is no need for Mr. Snipes to need to increase or infringe upon any of the other restrictions on the property. He is a small business owner and has the ability to move to a larger lot, a larger house, if that's what he desires. So therefore, I would like to just finally say, we don't need to let the camel get his nose under the tent, because once the camel gets under the tent, all the other camels will get there. Thank you.
Mr. Snipes, would you, I'm sorry, that's not your last name. Would you repeat your name and your address?
It's Brian Pritchard, Brian Pritchard, Pritchard. I live at 4208 Kingsway Court.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here to speak? Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, obviously the applicant is not present. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application? That will close the public portion of this application. 4208. Ms. Cobb, can you let us know if 4208 is adjacent to the property? Behind the property?
Kingsway Court is on the cul-de-sac adjacent to,
Okay.
I think it backs up to
there
it,
is one lot on the corner and then Mr. Snipes' lot.
where that RL is, I believe. Is their lot.
Terrific. Thank you. We are in need of a discussion or a motion on this application. I will say I thought the drawings that were submitted were very nice, and we are looking at a 10-foot building setback from the property boundary as opposed to a 15-foot setback. Is that correct? So it's fairly minimal request. So,
Administratively, yes. So we're, basically, you guys, it's just
Half of a foot.
give them.
I oppose for approval.
I'll second that.
so we have a motion for approval and a second for approval. I'm sorry, Ms. Knight, I should have said that better. A motion for approval for Mr. Carnegie and a second for approval for Mr. Eslick. Is there discussion of the motion? Would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Epps? Mr. Eslick?
Yes.
Ms. Venable?
Yes.
The vote passes.
Terrific, thank you. We'll move forward to BZA 2023, 300 Fulcher Street, Kim Rogers. Ms. Knight, would you please read the caption for this application?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 21-2023. The applicant, Kim Rogers, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family residence. The property is identified as tax map 35C, *4, *1, addressed as 300 Fulcher Street. Zoning classification, residential medium, density RM. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family residence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
The applicant, Kim Rogers, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35C, *4, *1, located at 300 Fulcher Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville, voting borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce required side yard setbacks adjacent to a street and the interior side yard setback in order to construct a new single-family residence on a corner lot. This lot is located on the corner of Fulcher Street in an undeveloped segment of Clary's Drive. The dimensional requirements for any newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 3,300 square feet in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The The width of any newly constructed home must meet a minimum of 20 feet wide. Traffic engineering has reviewed the application and has no concerns with the proposed development. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on this corner lot while meeting the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. And I'm available for any questions the board may have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb.
And I apologize, the elevations did not scan in very well, but I think you guys have them in your packets.
We do, and publicly, I will state this elevation for this home is very attractive. It's a good-looking product. We will open the public hearing. We have 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening, Board. I am Kim Rogers, Rogers and Company, General Contractors, and we're looking to construct a pretty nice single-family dwelling in a relatively nice area, which I think that would improve the area as well as improve the tax base for the city that I live in. Have any questions?
We will ask questions when the public hearing is over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition? Would you like to add anything, sir? Okay, that will close our public hearing. Do we have any questions for the applicant? So I think this is really consistent. I will add, I think this is very consistent with everything we see. I will also state that I have a very hard time with single-family homes being built this close to railroad tracks, which I've mentioned in the past. I don't necessarily know that that would affect the vote, but that's an issue, that's a personal issue for myself, having lots this close to railroad tracks, because in the ordinance, if it was a newly developed lot, we would not be allowed to have a home this close. So with that said, that is just my opinion. Do we have a motion from the board?
Motion for approval, because Clary's Drive, where that's at, that's a paper.
Separation, yeah.
It's a paper street.
No,
so-
I understand.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Carnegie for approval and a second by Mr. Eslick. If there's no conversation in regard to the motion, would you please call for a vote? Ms. Knight?
Mr. Cornegay?
Yes.
Mr. Epps? Mr. Eslick?
Yes.
Ms. Venable?
No.
The vote passes with 2-1.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you. We will move on to our fourth application of the day, BZA 22-2023, 207 Oak Street, applicant Polk Pinwell. Ms. Knight, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 22-2023. The applicant, Polk Pinewell, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6.67 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 34G 25, parentheses 1, 6, asterisk 4, addressed as 207 Oak Street, zoning classification RM residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 6.67 feet for construction of a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
Ms. Cobb and Ms. Knight, seeing that the same request is being made for 207 Oak Street and 209 Oak Street, application BZA 23-2023, may we vote on these simultaneously?
Yes, I believe we could just call for each case, but yes, I can kind of summarize both of the staff reports together.
It seems that the request is exactly the same, 6.67 feet. Okay, terrific, thank you.
Right, as previously stated, The applicant, Polk Pinewell, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 6.67 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The properties are identified as 207 Oak Street and 209 Oak Street, Whaleyville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald. A notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was also posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks to construct a new single-family residence. The dimensional requirements for any newly plotted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 4,330 square feet in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any newly constructed home must meet a minimum of a 20-foot wide requirement. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on this lot while meeting the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request.
And again, the same is applicable for 207 Oak Street as it is for 209 Oak Street.
Yes, this is the second survey.
And there's no elevations that were submitted with this, is that correct?
This is the Peace model you should have received. One was the Peace and one was the Serenity. They should have been in your packet.
Oh, I got one, yep. One here. Okay, thank you.
I think they got scanned in front and back because there were so many cases.
And then also, it looks as if in both situations, we have parking being provided on the plat, as there's no garage or anything for these homes. So perfect, thank you.
Yes, and I'm available for any questions you guys may have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We'll open the public hearing for both 207 Oak Street and 209 Oak Street. We have 30 minutes in length for our hearing, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application?
Good afternoon, council members and chairperson. My name is Robin Brown. I'm with Polk Pinewell Properties, and I'm here today with our builder, Steve Daniels, to request your approval for the variances that were submitted for 4 homes total. The 2 we're considering now on North 9th Street. We're making big improvements in the area and throughout Suffolk, and we're really excited to get these houses built and these lots filled up to increase the tax revenue, of course, for the city. But not only that, it'll bring families and much positivity into the area. We've already seen that with some of the houses that we've built, and we look forward to receiving your approval, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon, Board. Steve Daniels from Suffolk, Virginia, longtime resident and longtime builder in this neighborhood and on this street. We built a home at 205, and there was another home built on a similar lot directly beside it on the other side that was not us. But you see a lot of great development. Unfortunately, we're kind of trapped with these lots, but it's making a huge improvements in the quality of life on these streets. We're bringing in homeowners, which obviously maintain their property a whole lot better than absentee landlords. So this is making a huge improvement in quality of life for the neighborhood. I'm happy to answer any questions you have afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Seeing none, would you like to add anything? Terrific. That'll close this public hearing for both BZA 23, 2023, and BZA 22, 2023. Are there any questions for the applicant?
No.
Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval for both.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carnegie and a second by Mr. Eslick. Is there any conversation with the motion? If not, Ms. Knight, would you please call for a vote?
Okay, this vote will be for BZA 2022-23. Mr. Cornegat,
Yes.
Mr. Epps, Mr. Eslick,
Yes.
Ms. Venable.
Yes.
That vote passes. and this is for BZA 23-2023. Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Epps, Mr. Eslett,
Yes.
Ms. Venable.
Yes.
That vote also passes.
Terrific, congratulations. Moving forward, we will hear simultaneously BZA 24, 2023, and BZA 25, 2023, 120 North Street, Polk Pinwell Builders LLC, and 118 North 9th Street, Polk Pinwell Builders LLC. Would you please read the caption? Ms. Knight, thank you.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA, my apologies, I was reading 23. Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 24-2023. The applicant, Polk Pinewell, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet, and the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F, *LC, *22, addressed as 120 North 9th Street, zoning classification residential medium density RM. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the side yard setback, the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet, and the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Lisa Marshall, Zoning Inspector 2.
Good afternoon, board members, staff, and guests. I am Zoning Inspector Lisa Marshall with the City of Suffolk and will be presenting the staff report for BZA 24-2023. The applicant, Pinewell Builders, LLC, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet and the required side yard setback adjacent to a public street from 25 feet to 5 feet to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35F, *LC, *22, located at 120 North 9th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville Voting Borough. Zoning classification RM, residential medium. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet and the side yard adjacent to a public street from 25 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional standard requirements for newly plotted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 3,300 square feet in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any square feet in land area the width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on the lot and meet the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. I am available for any questions the board may have following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any questions? And again, I'll reiterate, BZA 24, 2023 and BZA 25, 2023 are adjacent lots. The only difference is 120 North 9th Street is adjacent to a road, so it's asking for a setback of 25 to 5 feet along the roadway, but in both cases, the side yard setback is being asked for reduction from 10 to 5 feet. Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of these applications?
Hi, Robin again. This is the same. We are definitely excited about building homes and receiving your approval. The setbacks are just something that we're having to deal with since they were built and the lots are so old and everything's becoming more advanced, and I love that. We're streamlining and becoming more efficient as a city. We really appreciate your approval on this.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor?
Good afternoon again. As you know, you're familiar with the city intimately. There's a lot of great momentum going down there. We just want to keep it going. And definitely appreciate the city's help on this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Daniels or Ms. Robin? Thank you. That'll close this public hearing. We need a motion or a discussion.
That's a good question. I'd like to ask a question of either Mr. Daniels or lady. What kind of pushback, if any, do you get on properties that you've sold in the past that are near a railroad track?
I've sold several on Clary's and right in this area, so I have been surprised that there has not been pushback because I would prefer to live farther away from the tracks, but it doesn't seem to make a difference. Quality, affordable homes are in very short supply, so surprisingly none.
Well, just for the record, you're confirming my thoughts. I haven't really seen it as a factor in the work that I've done. Okay.
Any additional questions, comments, or motion?
Motion for approval on both of them, both.
I'll second.
We have a motion for approval for Mr. Carnegie and a second for Mr. Eslick, and we will read these separately like we did the last two. Is that correct, Ms. Knight?
Yes.
Thank you. Will you please take the vote?
Okay. The item that we're voting on this time is BZA 24-2023. Mr. Cornegay,
Yes.
Mr. Epps, Mr. Eslick,
Yes.
Ms. Venable.
No.
The vote carries with a vote of 2-1. For BZA 25-2023, Mr. Corrigay,
Yes.
Mr. Epps, Mr. Eslick,
Yes.
Ms. Venable.
Yes.
The vote passes.
Congratulations. Thank you. I don't believe we have any other items for today. I'm assuming we have a meeting next month? Of course we do. That's terrific news. Thank you. That concludes our public hearing.